Hello my beautiful friends, it's Amanda here, and today we're doing a little 3 looks video featuring these newest palettes from Oden's Eye. These are the 2 palettes from their new Divine collection, the Jewels and Gem palette, which is my personal favorite, and also the Stone and Rock palette. I will show you one look with each palette, and then this one that I'm wearing on my eyes now, where I use a few shadows from each one of these palettes. I do have a full review video where I swatch these and go more in depth about all the info stuff. So make sure you check that out if you haven't seen it yet, because today is all about the tutorials. Just a little reminder before we jump into the eye looks, I do have an affiliate code with Oden's Eye. If you decide to pick these up or anything else from the Oden's Eye site, you can always use my code. It's just my name, Amanda, and that will save you 10% on most things. Typically, just their collaboration palettes are excluded from the code. And my collaboration palette is still available, and I do think that both of these would work really well with my Flora Story palette. So definitely at least go check out Flora Story and the other Perfect World palettes while you're on the site if you're inspired to do so after watching this video. I am going to show you the look that I wore in my review video. I used the Stone and Rock palette for that one. So let's start there and we'll get into the tutorials now. We're starting off first with a really warm, mustardy yellow and green look using the Stone and Rock palette. Of course, I'm going to start every single look by priming my lids first. I am really hooked on this Ulta matte eye primer. And then I'm going to start building in some of this mustardy, it's almost brown, but not quite, this matte shade called Jubilance. I'm putting that into the crease area and I'm blending up and out. I really want some of this yellowy brown color to peek out from behind the greens that I'm going to start adding into the look. Next, I'm going to add some depth to the outer part of the lid. I'm mixing these 2 shades called Dreamland and Elevated. Elevated is a very, very dark blackened brown, so I added in a little bit of Dreamland to just give it more of a swampy green look. I'm a huge fan of mixing my eyeshadows, mostly because I just can never stop being extra and adding more and more shadows onto my looks, but I love the idea of tweaking and customizing the shades and getting a slightly different look each time I use them, just simply by mixing even within the same palette. Now I'm using this bright acid chartreuse green shade called Madness, and I'm using my finger to pack that onto my lid because I want a super stark opaque application, and that is most easily achieved just by packing this on with the fingertip straight on top of that eye primer. Then I'm using a similar color. This one's called Passion, but this is a super, super shimmery metallic shade. And again, just using my fingertip to tap that across the middle of the lid. So I'm blending together the inner and outer shades. Then I added some of the Kaleidos 7 Seas liner into my lower waterline to mimic that green shimmer on top of the lid. And now I'm using just a little bit of Madness and Jubilance on this fluffy blender brush from Singe Beauty to blend the crease out, and that same combo of shadows is going along the lower lash line just because I want to add some more of that drama below the green liner that I applied. I like the idea of this look being a little bit smudgy and messy and not quite so perfect. So I'm just sort of blending out and smudging out that lower lash line. Then I curled my lashes, added a little bit of mascara. The finished look ended up being even better than I anticipated. I love that little bit of mustardy yellow peeking up from around the edges of the green. I really love the impact of that bright acidic chartreuse color on the lid and then also in that lower liner. Technique-wise, this is super simple, but the color combination definitely makes it more exciting. And these shadows are so easy to work with. They just blend and layer incredibly well together. So it really only takes me a few minutes to build a look like this. And I think that this eye look would look great with some liner and lashes too, if you wanted to add that extra step at the end. Now we're going to go into my personal favorite, the Jewels and Gem palette. Of course, priming the lids again. You know I always start every single tutorial this way. I'm mixing together two matte shades once again, Ecstasy, which is this very, very pale lavender shade, and then I'm adding a little bit more richness with a dusty pale mauve shade called Heaven. I'm using a big, big fluffy brush because I want a really big blown out application with very, very soft edges. I am going to do a lot of darker shades on the lid, so I want to make sure that I get a beautifully blended, really, really blown out transition shade for this particular look. And I'm adding that exact same shadow combo to my lower lashes as well. Again, just really smudging and blowing that out so that this soft color is nice and diffused all around the eye. Then I'm taking this very, very deep royal purple matte shade called Intoxication. I'm packing that dark shade onto the outermost part of my lid, and I'm also going to start adding that to the innermost part of my lid. I'm being very precise with where I put this because this is a super dark, super pigmented shade, so I'm really taking my time to make sure that I don't go outside of the confines of the part of my lid that I want to apply this to. And then once I've got the majority of that shade stamped onto the lid, I'm just using the edges of the brush to really gently blend up into that softer lavender shade that I put into the crease area. I absolutely love this matte formula, the way that it just glides together and layers so effortlessly. I don't lose any of the colors, but they still manage to blend very seamlessly together. I couldn't be happier with this shade. Super dark purples are hard to get a nice opacity, and this is just such an impressive dark purple shade. Speaking of impressive purples, this incredibly foily metallic shade called Exhilaration is so stunning. I barely have to put any on my finger to get the shimmeriest, most metallic looking. It almost looks liquid on the lid. I cannot say enough good things about this palette. I just love the colors. I love the way it performs. I did decide that I wanted to add a little bit more dimension to this look. So I'm taking this duochrome shade called Rhapsody and I'm putting just a teeny tiny bit of that silvery bright duochrome shade right in the very, very center where I added Exhilaration, and then I'm going back with some of the Exhilaration shade and tapping the edges so that we get a really seamless, smooth appearance on the lid, but I wanted a bright spotlight in the center of that eye look. Then I'm going to take the teeny tiniest bit of this pale, soft pink shade called Elatedness, and I'm just putting a little bit of that on the very inner corner. I don't want to take away from the highlight that I just put on the center of my eye, but I think that this little inner corner highlight gives some balance to the look. Then I curled my lashes and added some of this Lancome mascara. That's the finished look. Again, it's pretty quick and easy. The shadows do the work of making it look intense and complicated and impressive. I love how this particular eye look has a bunch of sparkle, but it also heavily relies on high performing matte shades. It has a softness and a sweetness, but it's also quite bold and vampy and sultry. There's just so much going on in this little simple eye look. Maybe I'm overthinking it because I love rich, sparkly purple eye look so much, so maybe I'm just feeling myself a little too much in this look. This is my favorite of the tutorials in today's video, and I think it may be my favorite eye look that I've done so far with this palette. Now, let's move on to the third and final tutorial. For this eye look, the one that I'm wearing in the talking portions of today's video, I'm going to pull some shades from both palettes to show you how well these can work together. So I'm starting off with this greenish gray shade called Seventh Heaven. It reminds me of a lighter version of the shade Sage from my Flora Story palette. Is it a neutral? Is it a color? Is it a gray? Is it a green? It really doesn't matter because it's a beautiful eyeshadow. Then I'm going to take this deep slate blue shade called Rapture. This is a very satiny feeling matte shade, and I'm just going to gently pack that on with a flat brush. This doesn't have to be fully opaque. If I wanted a super saturated application, I could easily pack this on with a denser brush or use my fingertip to really pack it on like I did in the first tutorial with that matte green shade. But I really just want this to be a little blue base that kind of peeks out from underneath some shimmers that I'm going to layer on top. So it doesn't have to be super solid and perfect. For my blending step, I am rotating between a brush that has no product on it and a brush that has a little bit of my original transition shade. These, again, are my Singe Beauty brushes. I have been very stuck on using these brushes. I have been cleaning them so much because I really need to use them in every single eye look. Now I'm using Fervor. This is a stark white matte shade, and I'm just taking a little tiny bit of that into the very inner parts of the lids, and then layering this icy blue green really shimmery shade on top. That white base will really make this shimmer called Frenzy pop once it's applied. And then I'm blending Frenzy out towards the blue shade that I added onto the rest of the lid. Now I'm going to mix Gorgeousness and Paradise. I have a little bit of each one of these shadows on two different fingers, my middle finger and my ring finger, and then I go back and forth with those, layering them, kind of sandwiching those two shimmers so that they can really blend onto the eyelid and get a nice opacity onto the lid. And I'm also, after those shades are mostly applied, I'm using my finger to just blend the edges out a little bit, but I'm not adding any additional product for that step. I'm just smudging that fingertip that previously had the shimmer on it so that it gives a softness to those edges. Then I'm going back with Seventh Heaven again to really deepen up the outer crease area and blend around where I applied the shimmers. Also adding some of the Seventh Heaven shade to my lower lash line to give a little smokiness to the lower part of my eye as well. This is another one that would look great with a black tight line and some little half lashes or something. Then I'm going to use a really flat brush and I'm going to go into Frenzy, this time with no white matte underneath, and I'm going to smudge that just on the inner part of the lower lash line so that the lower lash line is a little bit mirroring what's happening on the upper lids. And lastly, I'm going to use a pencil brush and I'm just going to smudge some of this shade called Passage. This is a super dark, opaque, matte black shade right along the outer part of my lash line on both upper and lower lashes. This gives a little bit of smokiness, gives sort of a faux liner look without actually having to use any liner. If I was going to wear this eye look to any sort of event or even a sexy little date night or something, then I may actually go in and add some black eyeliner, kohl liner, kind of tight lined, and add some lashes and some smudgy black liner on the upper and lower lashes as well. But I think that this look is really easily carried off in a more daytime setting without liner and lashes. It is deep and sparkly enough to give an evening feeling, but it's also so neutral and so much more toned down without false lashes that I think this is something I would easily wear during the daytime as well if I just wanted to be extra, which I often do. I know I said this in my review video, but it bears repeating. I really, really like these, particularly the Jewels and Gem palette. I think both are great. I'm a big fan of the Oden's Eye formulas. Their packaging is always beautiful. I love the way their different textures perform for me, and I just always get excited by their slightly unusual color stories. I love the way all these different looks have turned out. I've loved wearing these off camera as well with more pared down looks for my everyday life. Even though I like all the looks I created, I do think that the purpley look using the Jewels and Gem palette is my personal favorite. No surprise there because purple is my favorite eyeshadow color. But I'm really happy with how they all turned out. I would love to hear which look was your favorite. Have you picked any of these palettes up? Are you going to be recreating any of my tutorials from this video? I always love to hear what you think about things too, so make sure you leave all your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye! Ow, I'm fine. Just bending my leg is hard because I'm 37. So I'm fine. Alright, let's try that again. I think that I have conquered pretty much all the hurdles because, you know, I've even worn false lashes a couple times on my channel. I've been wearing a lot of blue eyeshadow. Those were big mountains for me to climb. I still don't know or desire to know how to do liquid liner like cat eye liner. I like the way it looks, don't get me wrong. I do like the way it looks, and a lot of people who wear it a lot are really good at it. They do like, you know, classic cat eyes, cool graphic liner stuff. I think that all looks really cool. It's just, I personally am not interested in that for myself. But I guess I can't entirely rule it out seeing all the blue eyeshadow and false lashes that I've worn over the past few months. It's still not my daily go-to, but at this point, you never know. I got blue nail polish, I got a blue shirt on, I got blue earrings, I got blue eyeshadow. I know it looks kind of gray from afar, but it definitely has like a blue base. Who is she? Smurf Queen. Me getting off topic? Never. Huh? Oh, okay. Great. Doing great. Anyway, I just appreciate you hanging out here. I'm always happy to see your beautiful face because I love it. And I'll see it hopefully real soon here in another video. Okay, see you then. Bye!